Hey folks, so today I want to talk to you about the relevance of coding in the era of agentic engineering or vibe coding or whatever you want to call it as. Now we will be dividing this video into three parts. Firstly, I will show you how people like the heads of companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, etc., how they are brainwashing you into believing that AI is incredibly powerful. We'll also take a look at why are they doing that, what are the incentives they have to do that, and then lastly we'll take a look at what's the truth, right? Where is AI really that powerful? And of course the truth lies somewhere in the middle, but we'll get to that. Firstly, let's start by taking a look at this tweet from Gary Tan. Now, this guy is the president and CEO of Y Combinator, which is arguably the best startup accelerator in the world. So this accelerator has invested a lot of money in many AI startups. So definitely, if AI is getting hyped up, then they have skin in the game to and like they are incentivized, right? If AI is getting more popular, if their startups make more money, then eventually when their funded startups will raise more capital, they have money to give. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now let's take a look at what this guy has to say. So he says that he had an absolutely insane week for agentic engineering, 37,000 lines of code per day across 5 projects, and that he is still speeding up. So what I've seen a lot lately is that people are measuring their productivity from the lines of code that they are generating using AI. And when you see posts like these, you will believe that, yeah, it is crazy that what is the amount of what kind of amount of work you can get done using AI coding tools. And you might think like, hey, yes, that I can easily ship a product using these AI tools using a day. You kind of end up building that sentiment. And it's not just Gary Tan, it's actually Anthropic and OpenAI, as we will just see. So what Anthropic did is that they published this survey last month where they said that if you take a look at this occupational category of computer and math, and if you take a look at this blue line which says 96%, then what this means is that Anthropic says that 96% of computer and math tasks in theory can be done by AI. And out of all these tasks, 32% are already being done by AI, right? So this is the observation, this is the observed AI coverage, and the blue one is the theoretical AI coverage. So 96% of computer and math tasks can be done by AI. So, well, of course, that is another thing which will probably lead you to believe that yes, AI is incredibly powerful and it can get all these things done, at least all the coding and math tasks done. Then let's take a look at these headlines which we have from people like Sam Altman. So Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT. Now, what we will see is that Sam Altman is constantly putting out headlines how AI will impact jobs, how it can probably displace human jobs, etc. What I want you to note here is the frequency of how regularly is he making statements like these. So this article that Sam Altman wants AI could impact human workers more than companies, this was published on April 7th, 2026. You go back, we have this article from March 18th, so just a month prior. Goodbye human coders. Then we had another article from a month before that on February 19th. We go back again, we have this article from December 24 where he says that AI could replace 40% of the jobs. Then you go back again 2 months, we have this article from 29th October where he says that Sam Altman says some disappearing roles were never real work to begin with. Wow. Okay. And then we go back again, we have this article from September 11th, and here he says that AI will take over customer service jobs. Then again, if you go back 2 months before that, then he says that these jobs may vanish. Then you go back another 2 months before that, and then he was grilled by some senator. Okay, so what we are seeing is that every month or every 2 months, Sam Altman is putting out statements like, hey, AI could impact jobs, that this can happen with jobs. Now, of course, you would like to believe that no one has selfish interests in this world, but yeah, we know that everyone does. So why is Sam Altman doing that? Why? And I have already covered in an earlier video on how Sam Altman is doing this thing, on how Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei is doing the same thing, and then we have also seen that even Gary Tan is putting out tweets like, "Yeah, agentic engineering is the future," etc., etc. So why are these people so bullish on AI? Why are they hyping it up? What is the incentive that they have for that? Well, the reason, firstly, is to develop a public sentiment that AI is incredibly powerful. Now, what ends up happening is that we have seen that Sam Altman is giving statements like AI is going to displace jobs, etc., etc., every month or every 2 months. Now, when you see statements, when he gives out statements like these, then almost every media house will pick it up, every social media handle is going to pick it up, and that's how it might end up in front of your eyes. It can be through newsfeed, it can be through social media, it can be through any other platform, maybe a newspaper, right? But when you see all these posts every month or every 2 months, then people will start talking about it, and subconsciously you will end up developing this opinion that yeah, AI is really powerful. That's why people are talking so much about it, and that's how this AI hype works, right? Now that you know how this AI hype works, let's take a look at what is the incentive that Sam Altman, we'll talk about Sam Altman specifically here and specifically OpenAI. Why are they giving out statements like these? Well, because they want to raise crazy amounts of money. Now, this article is dated April 1. So just 10 days ago, OpenAI raised a crazy amount of $122 billion at an eye-watering valuation of $852 billion. That's almost $1 trillion, okay? But what are they doing actually? Well, they are burning money. OpenAI is on track to burn $85 billion in 2028, and it expects profitability only by 2030. So how will they sustain their operations until 2030? That is still almost 4 years away. Well, by raising more and more money. Now, how are they raising this more and more money? Well, it is from public companies. It is from public companies like Nvidia. It is from public companies like AMD, Microsoft. These companies are pouring in money. Now, keep in mind that at the moment, OpenAI is a private company. They are expected to do an IPO later this year, but at the moment they are a private company, and it is the public companies which are pouring in so much money. Now, the thing with these public companies is that they are answerable to the public. So what we will see why how are they doing that? But firstly, what you have to understand is that these companies are answerable to their shareholders. So the first way that when we have this public sentiment that yeah, AI is incredibly powerful, when we have this AI hype, that is the first way that that once they have this public sentiment, that investors are more coaxed into believing that yeah, okay, you know, that they are giving in money, that's fine. They are investing something, they are investing their money into a powerful technology. But the second way how this AI hype works is by what we call as circular financing. Let's take a look at it. So OpenAI has been employing a strategy described as circular financing to fuel its intense capital needs, where investors in the company are also the primary suppliers of the infrastructure it needs to operate. Now let's take a look at the deal that OpenAI has with Nvidia and AMD. Nvidia agreed to invest up to $100 billion in OpenAI to build AI data centers, while OpenAI committed to purchasing millions of Nvidia GPUs for the same centers. So what's essentially happening is that Nvidia gave money to OpenAI, and OpenAI gave that money back to Nvidia by placing a big order with it. So you see how it's a circle. The source and the destination of the money is the same. Now, what ends up happening on paper is that investors might see that, oh wow, Nvidia's revenue grew by this much, by all this money. But what they don't see is that this is the very same money that they gave to OpenAI in the first place, and that's why we call this as circular financing. But when you just take a simple look at the revenues, then on paper these revenues are probably increasing, right? People don't know about circular financing here. They are just seeing, oh wow, the revenues are increasing, and that's how this AI bubble keeps growing, right? But what is actually happening is that Nvidia is not the only company which has this kind of a deal with OpenAI. AMD has a similar deal. Oracle has a similar deal. Even Microsoft has a similar deal. So all these public companies, their share prices are increasing, and just with the general public sentiment that AI is incredibly powerful, that's why that's how they are kind of not being questioned much about their investments into companies like OpenAI, like Anthropic, right? So that's how these companies brainwash you into believing that AI is really powerful, and that's why they are not being questioned as much. So that's the first part of the video. Now let's get to the second part and see whether AI technologies are really powerful or not. So we were talking about Gary Tan, right? And he was like, yeah, I'm pushing out like 37,000 lines of code, and there is just crazy amounts of work that you can just get done with AI. Now, what a guy ended up doing is that I audited Gary's website after he bragged about 37,000 lines of code and a 72-day shipping streak. Here's what 78,400 lines of AI slop code actually looks like in production. A single homepage load of garylist.org downloads 6.4 MBs across 169 requests. And then he goes on to list the issues that Gary's website has with production code. So yes, on paper, yes, it is true that AI is able to push out a working website, but the quality of code, no, it's not high quality. This code works, yes, but it's not high quality code. That's what you have to keep in mind. AI is powerful, yes, but the code is not high quality. That's what I'm repeating, right? It can get the work done for you, but the code is not high quality. Now, this is what we have with Gary Tan. Now, let's take a look at this tweet from Andrei Karpathy. Now, this guy is very, very renowned in the AI circle. And why is that? Because he has a PhD from Stanford. He was on the founding team for OpenAI. He was also the director of AI at Tesla. So he has a lot of credibility to his name. Now, what he ended up doing is that I want you to take a look at this section from this tweet. I will have everything linked down below if you want to give this a detailed read. But let's take a look at this IDEs, agent swarms, and fallibility section. So both the no need for IDE anymore. IDE simply means the coding editor where people write code. Both the no need for IDE anymore hype and the agent swarm hype is, in my opinion, too much for right now. The models definitely still make mistakes, and if you have any code you actually care about, I would watch them like a hawk in a nice large IDE on the side. The mistakes have changed a lot. They are not simply syntax errors anymore. They are subtle conceptual errors that are slightly sloppy, hasty, junior dev might do. The most common category is that the models make wrong assumptions on your behalf and just run along with them without checking. They also don't manage their confusion, they don't seek clarifications, they don't surface inconsistencies, they don't present trade-offs, they don't push back when they should, and they are a little too sycophantic. Things get better in plan mode, but there is some need for a lightweight inline plan mode. They also really like to overcomplicate code and APIs, they bloat abstractions, they don't clean up dead code after themselves, they will implement an inefficient, bloated, brittle construction over 1000 lines of code, and it's up to you to be like, couldn't you just do this instead? And they'll be like, of course, and immediately cut it down to 100 lines. They still sometimes change or remove comments and code they don't like or don't sufficiently understand as side effects, even if it is orthogonal to the task at hand. All of this happens despite a few simple attempts to fix it via instructions in Claude.md. Despite all these issues, it is still a net huge improvement, and it's very difficult to imagine going back to manual coding. The TLDR is that everyone has their developing workflow. My current is a small few Claude Code sessions on the left in a ghosty window and an ID in the right for viewing the code plus manual edits. And that's what we are going to conclude at the end of this video, that this is the approach that you should have. Now, what he mentioned, keep in mind that this guy, he knows AI in and out. He is on the bleeding edge. He knows about all these AI tools, Claude Code, OpenClaw, anything that you want to talk about. Now, if this guy, the max that this guy is able to do is that he's able to extract a junior dev level productivity from AI. If this is what this guy is able to do you think what are the odds that you will be able to do better than him? What I want you to know is that vibe coding is not a skill. I have seen a lot of people talk about how vibe coding is actually a skill. No, it's not. Anyone can go to ChatGPT or Claude and ask them to create an app. What you are just simply doing in vibe coding is that you are just telling the AI what to do. Well, anyone can do that. And we have got rumors that ChatGPT is going to be converted into a super app where it will have access to Codex, ChatGPT, and Atlas, their browser. So it will be a super app that you won't have to sort of just jump through multiple interfaces like people are doing currently, going to ChatGPT, then to Codex, then to Atlas. No, you won't have to do that. The user simply comes, they simply tell that super app that, okay, I just want this build. And OpenAI's that super app will automatically figure out whether to use ChatGPT, whether to use Codex, whether to use Atlas. It will do all of that, and it's just a matter of time before Gemini, Claude, all of those catch up and they end up doing a similar thing. So the future, if you are believing that vibe coding will actually be a skill in the future, no, it won't be, right? And on the other hand, let's say if you actually end up learning how to code, would that be a skill? Yes, that would be a skill. Now, the issue is that if you go to something like, let's say, W3 schools now, and let's say if I open up maybe the HTML tutorial, and you will see all these coding examples, and what I have just end up people seeing is that they will see all these learning sections, everything that they have to learn, etc., etc., and they will just easily get overwhelmed. They might be like, oh, it's a steep learning curve. AI can do all the coding for me. So why do I have to even learn, right? So what I'm trying to say is that people tend to get lazy, right? And this is actually what has been one of the most detrimental facts of overusing AI. AI is making us lazy. Whether you talk about creative writing, whether you talk about writing emails. Earlier, if you had to write an email, well, you would actually go ahead, put in some thought, put in some effort, articulate your thoughts, and write that email. Now you can just tell the AI to write that for you, right? So as over time, as you are seeing that the brain usage is kind of declining, and that's why I just believe that now we have got gyms for strength training. I guess it's just a matter of time where we will kind of have gym-like facilities, but for our brains, for our mental health, just to ensure that the basic cognitive functions are in operation. So and also another thing that you have to keep in mind, that coding is not just about writing code. It is so much about logical reasoning, problem solving, and critical thinking. All of these are life skills. They go beyond just creating an app and publishing it on the internet, right? These are the things which also something like art teaches you. Art teaches you creative thinking. AI can do art now, but does that mean that you should stop creating art? No, that doesn't mean you should stop doing that, right? There are hobbyist artists. There are people. I have already done a dedicated video on AI art and how the future of how AI is going to impact the future of art, etc., etc. And that's what I talk even there, that art is also an emotion. It is also about creative thinking, and it teaches you all these soft skills which are just beyond creating art, right? Now, another thing that I feel the most important part, as someone who has actually handwritten code, I can tell you, is that AI has helped me a lot in problem solving. And this is just something where we talk about life in general, right? That if you have a problem in life, if you run into a coding problem, what you end up doing is that you end up breaking it into simpler blocks, and then you just solve each of those blocks one at a time, and that's what coding teaches you. Now, let's say if I face a problem in life, then I just follow a similar approach. So that's something that I learned thanks to coding. So coding also teaches you life skills. It teaches you logical reasoning. It teaches you critical thinking and all of that stuff. So it's so much more than just learning how to write code, right? It ensures that your cognitive functions are working properly and all of that. So let's say if I have to hire someone, if there is one guy who doesn't know the basics of coding, and maybe he is good at management or something else, right? And there is this other guy who is more efficient in coding, who knows what's a class, what's an object, etc., etc. If I have to trust someone to manage maybe a crisis or something in software, well, yes, of course, I would go to that engineer, right? You won't go to someone who doesn't know even the basics of coding. And that's exactly what I want to tell you, that learn how to code, right? If you know the basics, and this is the same approach which Andrew Karpathy is saying, that if you know the basics of coding, then what you can do the best is that you will be able to direct it. You will be able to give direction to its efforts. So think of it like the best example that I can probably pull off from my head right now is think of AI like your Uber driver. You should know your source. You should know where the destination, and AI will probably do the heavy lifting for you. It will drive you from the source to the destination, but you should know the source and the destination, right? You should know where to get started and where to end up. And if AI is making some mistakes in between, if your Uber cab driver is not taking the correct route, you can just direct it. Hey, you can maybe be looking at Google Maps or something and be saying, oh, you are just going in the wrong direction, just point it in the right direction. That's what your role is going to be. You use AI as a tool, but you should also be familiar with what AI is doing to ensure that you produce high quality code. Yes, you can get functioning apps, but then, well, AI in general, it is definitely slop, and it is probably reducing your cognition abilities as well. And honestly, it is not too hard to learn coding, right? Maybe it might seem like, just when you look at this interface, it might seem complicated, but no, it's not. You can just learn any language, right? Learn HTML, learn CSS, learn JavaScript, anything that you want, okay? Or maybe learn Python. Just, you don't have to learn all the languages, just learn one of them. And the logical reasoning works same across all the languages, right? That's what I can tell you. So any language that you learn, then even if if you learn Python and you are maybe writing code in JavaScript later on, then once you have the knowledge about how variables, etc work, the logic stays the same. You will be able to say, okay, right, this is how a variable is defined in HTML or in JavaScript, this is how a variable is in Python. You will be able to do all those correlations, but definitely learn programming. So that's the only thing that I want to leave you with. And you don't learn programming by watching AI code for you, right? Like it's like asking that if you want to cook, right, then you won't simply learn by watching a chef cook, right? You will actually have to go in the kitchen and do the cooking. Or let's say if I want to become a tennis player like Roger Federer, right? I can't just become a tennis player by just looking at him, right? I will actually have to go to the court, hit some tennis balls, get that practice in, and that's how I learn. You learn by making efforts. Learning, there is definitely some friction in learning. There is definitely a learning curve, but once you are done with that learning curve, you'll actually feel proud of yourselves. You will feel good about it, and it will also increase your cognition abilities, make you feel happier, and will just do so much more. It will give you all those life skills that we talked about. So that's why I feel that coding is a very important skill. And that's why I still say it is relevant to learn coding. Go ahead and do that, and you will be able to produce even better apps. And mind you, that if you know coding, then you will even be able to produce faster apps, even than like just one shot. You might produce an app using AI in one shot, and then there might be a bug, then you might be going back and forth with AI a bunch of times. Well, if you know coding, you will be able to pinpoint, okay, this is the issue, this is what you need to fix. And that's why, even though that initial learning curve might seem slow at first, eventually it will pay you back in crazy amounts of time. You will be faster, and if you maybe just sort of add that time across the back and forth that you will have with AI, versus if you put that time into learning how to code and then actually building that app, well, it will actually be the same. And then when you build future apps, you will be faster. So that's all that I wanted to tell you about. So the truth is that yes, AI slop is there. AI is not as good, but it is definitely a powerful tool that you should use. That's all I have for you guys in this video. I hope you found this video helpful. If that was the case, you know the drill: like, subscribe, follow, etc. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.